Minister, I'm going to jump right in my questions because you've had a month to answer these questions. But you said in your opening statement, I'm going to quote you, "This is the way that the investigation, the way that the investigative and national security system should work." Your government issued a visa to somebody who was allegedly in a 2015 ISIS propaganda video, who then planned a mass casualty event outside of Toronto with a target in our city, in our country's largest city. The RCMP foiled that plot with intelligence from the French. Are you really telling Canadians that that's how our system should work? He's been here for 6 years.
Mr. Chair, what I'm saying to Canadians is that the moment the government of Canada became aware of concerning information regarding this individual, all of the appropriate steps were put in place by CSIS and the RCMP, which culminated in the arrest on the 28th of July. And thank God, as Ms. Landsman said, the potential serious risk or violence was averted. With respect to the information regarding the immigration processing, the Immigration Department will be here later and are in a position to speak to the specific steps that an applicant, whether for asylum or permanent residency, and we're looking at the security check system.
Yeah, Minister, by my count, there's about 6 security checks in the documents that you dumped on this committee 50 minutes before it started. Do you really think that the system is working if somebody like this, who's an alleged ISIS terrorist, who, if he was even a little bit more productive, would have resulted in mass casualties in Toronto? Do you really think that that's how the system should work? Do you really think that this is not a colossal failure of your government?
I am very proud of the work that the RCMP and CSIS did in thwarting this particular case. I think, as Mr. Gallivan indicated, if you look at the tens and hundreds of thousands of these cases that are reviewed every year as people seek asylum, submit asylum claims, or apply for various visas, we necessarily rely on the work of our security agencies. We're always looking at ways to strengthen and evolve that posture as the threat context, as Ms. Lloyd said, evolves. But in this case, I am satisfied that when the government of Canada was aware or could possibly have been aware of this information, all of the steps were taken.
They were aware 6 years ago when he came in. And speaking of that, we heard speculation,
Ms. Lassman, you can't assert something like that if you're...
He's been here for 6 years. It's just a known fact from your own documents.
But you said to assert that people were aware of some information that came to light recently 6 years ago is wrong.
There is speculation that he was brought in under the Syrian refugee program. Is this correct, yes or no?
I'm not sure I can speculate on the particular immigration status and program, and I'm not sure what part of that might be subject to the criminal trial, but you could certainly ask the Immigration Department that question.
Do you believe that if he was brought under this, if he was brought in through this stream, the government promised increased screening on asylum seekers in this country? Do you believe that after everything we know today, that your government is doing its job on that?
But again, I don't want to give credence to the premise that you ask because I don't have that information. So I want to be very precise that you don't link his arrival to a particular immigration program. The Immigration Department, I think, can provide you with those facts. I don't have them, but I don't want, in answering your question, to appear to confirm that because I don't have that information. I am satisfied that both the security services and the RCMP with the Immigration Department have in place a series of rigorous screening and background checks that take place. You heard Ted talk about biometric screening, 6 different databases. We heard the interim director of CSIS talk about 300 agreements, 150 different countries. We have access to a great amount of information to keep Canadians safe, and we need to make sure that that information is used in the most expeditious way possible.
This person was brought into Canada 6 years before a terrorist plot was foiled, just days before they would have killed people in Toronto. And you're telling Canadians that you're satisfied with the screening processes in place.
As I said in my opening comments, this person and the nature of the allegations which ultimately led to the investigation and arrest came to our attention in June, and this person from that point on was obviously under the appropriate surveillance to ensure that any threat was mitigated, and led to the ultimate arrest on the 28th of July.
Thank you, Ms. Landsman.
Now, Minister, to be clear here, this person who is charged with terrorism offenses with his son, he arrived in February of 2018, correct? I'm going off the information you gave me, Minister.
Yes, in February 5th, 2018, the subject entered Canada at Pearson Airport.
And he made an asylum claim in June of 2018, correct?
Yes, he went to an immigration department office and made that asylum claim.
And he was granted citizenship in May of 2024, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
And provided a work permit in September of 2018. That was that was the initial basis on which he was able to legally be in Canada. Is that right?
Yes, that appears correct from the chronology before the committee.
Okay. Permanent resident of September of 2021. Is that right?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. Thank you. Now, you wrote me a letter on August 12th of this year stating none of this. So I'm just going to note here for the record that you said, Minister, that we couldn't comment on any of this, and then lo and behold, here today we have this vast chronology that has appeared just before committee. It seems odd that you would say you couldn't give us any of this information, and that here today we have all of this information from you. What we have here, Minister, is obviously a colossal failure. I'll be direct. How did somebody slide under the radar for so long, 2018 to 2024?
So just with respect to your initial comment, you're right. In August, I thought it was important, and I asked, as did my colleague Mark Miller, our officials to produce the detailed chronology. So I wanted to make sure that when we came to this committee and are able to talk about this publicly, we had the precise chronology that we could all rely on.
So that's not what you said in your letter, though, sir. You said in your letter that there was an ongoing investigation, and yet here we have this information. I don't want to focus on that. I want to focus on how did this person fly under the radar for 6 years?
So this person entered Canada on the dates that you described, Mr. Caputo, and as are reflected in the chronology. The security services, CBSA, CSIS, and the Immigration Department did all of the existing security checks and the normal security checks, and including biometrics by the RCMP on a number of occasions. And there was, at the time that those decisions were made, no information that would have come to light to trigger what happened earlier this spring in terms of CSIS's investigation.
In fact, we actually had to hear from a foreign government about this. Isn't that right? That CSIS got information from a foreign government has been reported by Global?
You have been, Mr. Caputo, at this committee for some time. You know that the intelligence agencies are not going to ever discuss the sources of intelligence or information they get from partner agencies. First of all, it may be illegal to disclose that, but it's also very dangerous to the women and men who do that work, either at CSIS or in their partner agencies, to confirm the sources of this information. So I'm not able to give a definitive answer on that question, and you know that very well.
Equally as troubling as that answer is the fact that we as Canadians did not have this intelligence for ourselves. How is it that foreign governments know more than we do on Canadian soil?
I don't accept the premise of that comment. Every intelligence agency collaborates with partners around the world. The most effective and the most renowned intelligence cooperation would be the Five Eyes countries, of which, as you know, Canada is a member. And the information is shared between these security services on an hourly and daily basis, precisely because it makes our country safer, but we can also contribute and do often, and the great work done by CSIS, to the security of our partner countries as well. So that's a very normal security process that you understand very well.
With all due respect, Minister, you need to stop deflecting and start divulging. At this point here, you're saying, you're not even confirming it, How is it that a foreign government knew more than we did in Canada about somebody that was on Canadian soil for 6 years? How is that?
But, Mr. Caputo, perhaps I wasn't clear in the previous answer. You understand very well, and I'd be happy to ask the interim director of CSIS to explain the reasons why it is inappropriate, if not illegal, to answer questions around specific intelligence products, and more so because this is an ongoing criminal case. Some of this evidence, the prosecutors in their judgment may decide to bring before a court, before a jury at some future prosecution.
I'm not talking about the evidence. I'm talking about how the evidence was gathered. How is it that a foreign government knew more than our own government? That's what I'm talking about, not the evidence, sir. At the end of the day, this is what we have. We have somebody that came in here and was here for 6 years flying under the radar. We don't know whether this happened before, and we have no assurances from you whether or not this will happen again. You've deflected, you've diverted, and you've denied, and that is absolutely inexcusable to this point. Canadians deserve answers, and we are getting none. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Caputo. The minister can answer if he wishes.
Mr. Caputo can repeat those phrases and those words. It doesn't make them true. What you have here, Mr. Chair, is a case where 2 individuals were arrested and are now in custody facing 9 very serious criminal charges. This was a situation that could have presented a serious risk to the safety of Canadians, and CSIS and the RCMP and other police partners did phenomenal work. I am fortunate enough as the Minister of Public Safety, as I said, to be updated, to be briefed from time to time on some of these significant cases. That was the case for me on July 24th, and 4 days later, these people were in police custody. So I saw up close the very effective work that the RCMP, CSIS, and others did. So the premise that somehow this person flew under the radar, this person was arrested and is facing criminal charges and is in jail before any risk was presented to Canadians. And that's exactly the kind of work that we rely on our police services, the RCMP, and their partners like CSIS to do every day. And I'm proud of that work.